Hello, PLMS 8th grade students. Today we're going to be working with the Pythagorean theorem, actually using the formula to find missing side links. Now on your PowerPoint it says I can draw a picture and use the Pythagorean theorem to solve real-world problems. The pictures for the most part are going to be drawn today, but I will draw in some as you go along to make sure that you know how to draw a picture in order to use the Pythagorean theorem. But some of the pictures will already be created for you. So our I can statement is I can use the theorem to find the distance between the original 2 points. Please feel free to stop the video as you need to write things down today. You may need additional time other than what I'm just giving you. So remember that that's what's lovely about having the pause button. Give yourself some more time. A ramp to a newly constructed building must be built according to the guidelines stated in the Americans with Disabilities Act. If the ramp is 24.1 feet long and the top of the ramp is 2 feet off the ground, how far is the bottom of the ramp from the base of the building? So first of all, we know that the ramp is 24.1 feet. So what we're referring to right here is that portion of our diagram. And it's 2 feet off the ground. So we know that when we're talking about off the ground, we start with the base of the ground, and we're talking then about 2 feet off the ground. How far is the bottom of the ramp from the base of the building? So that's the question. How far is the bottom of the ramp from the base of the building? That's going to be from this point all the way to the base of, or the bottom of the ramp. So first of all, we just have to understand what question is being asked. This problem does involve a right angle. You see the symbol for right angle right here in the bottom corner. And we can see that this triangle makes a right angle. Use the Pythagorean theorem. So this is what the formula is going to look like. Now in this PowerPoint, it will start with c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. And I know for some of you, like the a squared plus b squared on the left, it really doesn't matter which direction you go, but you will need to write the formula each time. So we know that c, which was opposite of the right angle to begin with, that has to be substituted in as the longest length. We know that the height was not included, but that the base is 2 squared. And actually, those two can be interchanged. These two, it's okay if you had said 2 squared plus b squared instead. It's not going to change your answer. From there, we simplify the exponent, so 24.1 squared is equal to a squared plus 4. We're trying to find the distance between the building and the bottom of the ramp. Remember, again, that's our goal. So to get there, we isolate a squared. To get it by itself, we're going to get rid of a positive 4. So to do that, we subtract 4 on both sides of the equation. And that's what they're showing here. I subtracted 4 on the right, I subtract 4 on the left. Then all that I have left is a squared is equal to 580.81 minus 4, or 576.81. Take the square root of both sides. Make sure you do that. You show that step for me. The square root of a squared is a, and then we want to know the square root of 576.81, and you can just put that in your calculator. Second, square root 576.81. And remember, we're dealing with distance, so even though we know with square roots there are two solutions, really the only solution that makes sense is a positive solution of 24.0. And then, of course, don't forget the label. So for your check your progress, it says if a truck ramp is 32 feet long, I'm going to draw a picture. And the top of the ramp is 10 feet off the ground. So you imagine here's the ground. It's going to be 10 feet off the ground. How far is the end of the ramp from the truck? So you imagine here's the truck. Nice picture, right? How far is the ramp from the truck? So this is the bottom of the ramp and then this truck. So basically we're trying to find out B. I like to use B for base. I like to use A for height. And then we know that this makes a right angle. Opposite of the right angle is going to be C, or your hypotenuse. We know the Pythagorean theorem formula. Write that first. Write it every time. So we don't know C. I'm sorry, we do know C. 32 squared is equal to A, or the height, is going to be 10 squared, and we don't know B. We don't know the base. That's what we're trying to find out. So 32 squared, you just put that into your calculator, is going to be 1024 is equal to 100 plus B squared. Now remember, we're not trying to solve for B squared, we're just trying to solve for B. But the first step to get there is to isolate B squared, or get it by itself. To do that, you're going to subtract 100 on both sides of the equation. So we end up with 924 is equal to B squared. Just like in an equation, you want to make sure that your equal signs are lined up. From here, once again, we're not trying to solve for B squared, we want to solve for B. So we want to take the square root of not just 924, but also B squared. The square root of B squared is B, and the square root of 924 comes out to be 30.4 feet. Make sure you're paying attention to when it tells you to round. This particular problem does not tell you what to round to, but your final answer should be A, as about 30.4 feet. Test example. The cross-section of a camping tent is shown below. Find the width of the base of the tent. So there's some information in here that we're going to use to find out information that we don't know. We know that we're going to eventually use our formula. Formula is C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So let's kind of dissect this a little bit. It wants to know the width of the base of the tent. So what it's asking ultimately is how, or what is the distance from this point to this point? That's what we're trying to find out. That's W is going to represent our width. So the information that we know is that here's our right angle, and opposite of the right angle is going to be C. That's where I would always start with labeling the figure. And then I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I like to use B for base and then A for height, but note that the A and the B can be interchanged. The C has to be opposite of the right angle. We know that that's going to end up being larger than the other two, so that can be a good check as well. So A is going to be 8 squared plus, I don't know, B squared. And then we simplify. 10 squared is 100 is equal to 64 plus B squared. We're trying to solve for B, so we want to get B by itself. To do that, I subtract 64 on both sides of the equation. When I do that, I end up with 36 on the left and B squared on the right. A reminder that we're not solving for B squared, we're solving for B. So we want to find the square root of both sides. Square root of B squared is B. The square root of 36 is 6. What we need to consider is that it could be positive or negative, but because we're talking distance, the answer has to be positive, right? So here we would say it's 6 feet. But remember, the original question says find the width of the base of the tent. So if we're talking about the width, if from this point to this point it's 6 feet, we can just multiply 6 times 2, and then we get 12 feet. So our final answer should be D, 12 feet. This just explains it. I'm going to click through this. We just went through it. Now you're going to do the same thing. So I would pause the video and try to do this on your own. And I'm going to work it out while you are trying to do that by yourself. Once you have finished, then start the video again. In this problem, it says this diagram shows the cross-section of a roof. How long is each rafter? So this is a little different than the other one because, once again, we label first. So we know that the height is A. I like to use A for my height, B for my base. But I realize that from this point to this point is 32. So I'm going to have to divide that by 2 to get the distance of B, which is 16 feet. In other words, 32 divided by 2 gives me 16 feet. What I don't know is the hypotenuse, which is opposite of the right angle. So as I use my formula, the c squared is the part that we don't know. We know a squared, we know our b squared. And then when you solve, the question ultimately is asking what is r? In other words, what is the rafter? So we're trying to measure from this point to this point. So final answer should be C, 20 feet. Says write an equation you could use to find the length of the missing side of the right triangle, then find the missing length, round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So I'm going to go through this example with you, and then for the next couple of examples you can just work those through on your own. So let's remember the formula, and then I want to label the triangle. So when I substitute in, I don't know c squared. I know that a is 4 squared plus the value of b is 3. We're going to square that. Now we simplify. 4 squared is 16 plus 3 squared is 9. C squared is 25. Then you find the square root of both sides. And we know that with square root equations, there's 2 solutions, but we're talking about length, so it has to be just the positive answer, or 5 centimeters. As you can see there, that is C. So what I want you to do now is go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to practice this example. You're writing an equation, and then when you're finished, then I want you to check your answer. I'd like you to do that for the next 2 problems. So pause the video now and do the next 2 problems, and then check your answer. When you're finished, start the video. The answer for this problem is, you may have guessed it, A. And the next problem, write an equation you could use to find the length of this missing side. The answer should then be, wait for it, D as in dog. One more practice problem, and this is just review from our target 3, and that is if a triangle with side lengths of 8, 20, 30,